Hello and welcome to Talk Product. My name is Casey and my guest's name is Logan. Good buddy of mine. We worked way back in the day. Really stoked to have you on and just get to chat with you and kind of continue our conversation that we had at the bar a couple days ago. So, welcome, dude.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, no, I'm stoked. Definitely want to carry on that conversation. We were on a roll.
Yeah, for sure. And then as I was starting this podcast, I was like rushing to finish a sandwich. I don't even know if I have food like on me. I was like eating so fast. I was like, "Oh shit, Logan's gonna get on." I was like, I gotta eat real quick."
Oh, you're
Hey,
good, man. Yeah, all
yeah,
good. Right on.
cool, man. So, what are you working on right now?
Oh my gosh. I mean, as you know, so I work for a company called Perceptics, and we do a lot of major employee engagement surveys, and really try to focus on the employee experience. So right now, I'm just currently working on, gosh, a lot of Figma prototyping, and things like customer facing dashboards, being able to customize their data and report stuff coming from some of the offerings that we give our clients to capture data from all of the sources we give them, like surveys and stuff. And so being able to take that data, compile it, and create dashboards is one of the things that I'm working on. And then, aside from that, I do some freelance work for a kind of like a marketing firm agency, and we kind of focus on nonprofits and whatnot. And I do just like web design stuff. I've been really getting into Framer, just like that no code like website tool. It's been a
Yeah,
lot of fun. And honestly, that's like a big thing for me, is just being able to. It's an easy tool to dive in, have fun, throw stuff together, and just create some fun stuff. And that's what I love about
yeah. I feel like you are a prime generalist. Like we
it. Yeah.
worked together for a long time, and you're just talented at everything. Like
Oh, thanks, man.
you make 3D art, you are a musician, and you can also like you're an amazing designer.
I
Um,
appreciate that, dude. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even just like looking behind you, like your guitar and your
Yeah.
artwork and stuff. Is some of that art yours or?
The only one that's mine is this one right here. So this kind of like weird.
Yeah,
This was actually funny enough. So this one right here, you can barely see it's so dark,
that
but
was cool. Yeah.
this piece of art right here, I did all in 3D Studio Max. So this was all like the first, like when I first started really getting into 3D work. I was only using 3D Studio Max because I got a free account from like faking as being a student. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Student license or whatever it is. And so I just went ham and started doing some cool stuff, and pretty much killed my old PC trying to do all these like cost simulations and stuff, and win stuff, and spent way too much money on like plugins and like for this hair and all that stuff. Like it was crazy. But
That's cool, man. Like how did you start getting curious and creating 3D art?
dude, so I mean, I don't know. Like you and I've talked about this a lot too, but I think it's just something that I've always wanted to do and always like been interested in. Just artwork. I loved 3D stuff. Even back when I first started getting into design stuff. But it was one of those things where I was always too afraid to take that first step. Like I remember having a copy of 3D Studio Max way back in the day, and every time I would open it up, I would just get so overwhelmed with all the stuff, and I just didn't know where to start. And it wasn't until probably, gosh, back when kind of around the same time you were getting really serious with your digital art stuff too, when I was like, you know what, enough's enough. I'm tired of just putting this kind of like thing that I want to learn on the back burner. And so I just I don't know, that was like maybe 7 years ago now, 7 or 8 years ago, where I was just finally ready. So I just opened it up and just started throwing stuff on the screen and watched a bunch of tutorials, and but yeah, that kind of passion for just creating like random, weird, crazy sci-fi inspired stuff. I mean, just like yourself. I mean, that interest and that kind of creativity aspect of has always been there, you know?
Yeah, no, like I had the same thing. Like you mentioned, we were both making art like at the same time, and I was kind of feeling the same way. I was like, if I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna go hard and like
Yeah.
really try it and see where it takes me, and that's like when I started taking a couple of like workshops in LA, like actual
Yeah.
like concept design workshops, and met some teachers and students, and the students were like, why are you here? It's like, hey, what studio are you working with? I was like, hey, I'm working with Blizzard. I'm working with Disney. And they're like, who are you working with? I'm like, I'm a web designer. I'm here just because I'm stoked about it. And it was just really funny. I was just like the odd man out.
No,
Um,
that's awesome, man. Yeah.
yeah.
And that was
But
that was with Gnome Workshop, wasn't it? Or something? Or
yeah, I
what
did the Noman stuff online, but then I went to the Concept Design Academy in Pasadena with a
Oh,
couple of
okay.
their classes, which was really cool. It was cool getting to see that kind of world and see if I wanted to really, dip my toes into it.
Did you
Um,
ever do any oh gosh, what do they call it? Where you go and like figure, I guess figure drawing, where you would meet up with a bunch. I don't know what it's called, but like you'd meet up with a bunch of different artists, and then they would have like someone pose in the middle, and then they would all kind of sketch. I can't remember the
no,
name.
never went to any of those classes. No, didn't
Yeah,
get to draw naked people, but we did do plenty of like nature
yeah,
sketches and stuff. So we would go out in the hills, like the LA hills, and like paint the hills, paint the buildings. Because most of the stuff that I was taking, it was like I was mostly interested in like environmental concept
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
and like that kind of sci-fi stuff. I loved making big landscapes. Like when I was really into it, like I would always make like big like space stations and like landscapes and planets, and that was like my thing. So
That's so cool, dude. Yeah, I
no,
love that stuff, man.
no. What about you? Did you ever draw naked people?
I was just gonna say, so there was I think I went twice. There was like a free meetup group. This was years ago back when I was really trying to get into like anatomy and learn how to draw the human figure and all that kind of stuff. I'm looking around to see if I have any of my old sketchbooks, but I don't know where they're at. But there was a time where I went down to like Orange County, or I don't remember where it was, and it was Costa Mesa, but there was like a free meetup group for again, it's going to drive me crazy because I don't remember the name. It was like Still Life, or I don't remember the name of that particular, you know, art style, or not art style, but process. But yeah, there was a few times I went down there and it was really weird, because you're like,
Yeah, yeah,
but it was kind of cool because you're sitting there with a bunch of different aspiring artists and all different types of talent levels. I mean, you have people that are legitly. It just boggles my mind how some artists and people just have that talent of being able to legitly put what they see onto a type of medium, whatever that may be. But and then you have people like me who was like, starting out drawing stick figures.
yeah, yeah.
What I mean? But it was fun. Yeah, super super cool experience to be able to draw. Kind of similar to what you were doing too, like nature. Like you're actually sitting in nature, kind of trying to recreate what you see on your paper or tablet or whatever it is, and it's that whole aspect of being able to take it in and then output that on something is it's pretty wild.
Yeah, so how did that work? Did you guys draw straws to see who would be naked, and then
that, that
that
would be
was the unlucky person, or
luckily they had volunteers already, like people that'd be like, I'd love to do that, which it's funny because like it's kind of not surprising that you'd have like a random group of people that just don't mind doing that, you know what I mean? But it's like they're out there and they're
yeah,
like, yeah, sweet, they need someone to pose, like count me in. I'm and they would, I mean, to their credit, I gotta say it is pretty amazing how um they're able to stay so still
hmm
in these, and allow these artists to just sketch and draw and just stay in that same pose for like an hour or more sometimes. It's
That
just,
would cramp me up immediately.
oh, I'm like, how in the world? I could not do that. I'd be
I don't
like,
even like sitting in the same position while getting tattooed for like
oh
more than
yeah,
an hour. Even if it's a comfortable position, like I'll start cramping up. And like the tattooing process isn't the worst part for me. It's just the having to stay in one position, for a long period, like a long stretch of time.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine. I'd be
No.
all over the place. Like, okay, I gotta get up.
But I miss it. I miss making art. I miss being being hungry for it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't know what my muse was, but at some point I lost it. And it wasn't so much like I didn't feel motivated to do it anymore. I just felt more motivated to, I guess, reinforce the disciplines I already had with
Mhm.
like product design. I was like, maybe I should just double down and like really focus hard on this product design, like web design thing, and keep going with that because it's like I've already been doing it for so long. It's like if I get back into it, I'll make it a hobby, but but then it never like I never got it back. Like I never felt like for the last couple years, it's been really almost intimidating for me to just pick up even just a piece of paper and a pencil and and draw something, even if it was just like for fun.
I can relate to that because it's that, yeah, it's weird. It's like at some point you're at least same thing for me. It's like you're kind of doing your daily thing, and you're like, I might as well put as much focus into this particular skill set that I have, to just better and further my career in this, in this space. But yeah, I mean, same thing, like, and you and I talked about this too. I think with the emergence of AI and all that kind of stuff also had a little part to play in just kind of
Yeah.
killing off that drive. Um, but kind of going back to it, yeah, it was the same for me. There was at some point where it was a combination of that, but then also, yeah, the same, like, I really want to put more effort into what I'm doing and really try and focus on how can I increase my skill set. Like for me, it was, I really want to learn Figma really well, and, more web design type concepts and web application stuff. And then, you know, even more recently, I started to really try and pour more or increase my knowledge into learning how AI affects product design and all that kind of stuff, and really trying to understand how that will affect what we do, and then how we can use it as product designers in our everyday kind of, work and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, I really miss having that hunger, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
about being that creative, like, drive to want to make just cool stuff. And, it really was like for ourselves. I mean, at least for me, like, I never really, I mean, I always thought, oh, that'd be rad to actually get a career in this, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I was just stoked to make something cool that I thought was rad.
Yeah.
Um, and I miss that. I totally miss it.
I did do one paid illustration gig, and that was
I,
it for those like 4 or 5 years of me just messing around, training to see where I go.
yeah.
I did get one like book cover,
Yes.
and I got paid $200, and I was stoked. Then I was like, I think this is my crescendo. Like I think this is my like, cool, I did it. Now I can get back into building websites.
Dude, I remember that, and I was
uh,
so cool because I remember you posting that on your Instagram and stuff, and kind of putting it out there, dude. I thought that was so rad because it was like you were able to take your passion and your creative hobby and actually, like, make a money off of it, right? And I thought that was so cool because my whole thing too was, you know kind of during that time where we were both, creating all this cool stuff. I mean, it always kind of crossed my mind. It'd be rad to, like, be able to do this and actually make make something from it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I
But
spent thousands of dollars and
oh,
tens of hours of time to make $200. It was
I
awesome.
know, yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah,
so
yeah.
cool.
All the money that, oh my gosh, dude! Like, I remember when I finally purchased a legit copy of Cinema 4D, and that's when I like started going crazy with that. But that was like I think it was back in maybe 2018 or 17, maybe.
Hmm.
And it was like a Black Friday sale or something like that, but it was still like a couple grand, you know. And I was really trying to not buy it, but it's like I was like, okay, if I don't get it now, it's going to go up to like 3 or 4 thousand, but I can get it half off, you know. And I just had to make the plunge and do it. But yeah, now it's just those tools are so expensive, and I honestly don't like. I know they have certain programs for people to help like get in and try it out and stuff like that. But it's just so hard sometimes to learn those tools when they cost so much money. And that's why I think
Yeah.
Blender is a really good tool. And I know there's some other options too for like digital artists, but Blender is another tool that I really want to get into just because it's kind of more open source and free, I guess. But
Yeah, and we had this discussion too when we were at the bar, and I think we were a few drinks in, and I mean, we also started talking about like space aliens and
I
like
love it.
ancient societies, and just really cool conversations that I usually get into with you when we're drinking.
Yes.
I was totally psyched, but like when we were talking about art, as much as I was frustrated that like I felt like I spent all this time and energy and it just like I gassed out and didn't really do a whole lot with it. I can't help but feel worse for students that
Mm.
like that was their main career and then now with the technology that's come out,
Yeah.
I can't help but empathize with them because I see where they're coming from, how they feel like art has almost been devalued with
Yeah. Yeah.
generative AI in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Big time. Yeah. And that was, I mean, we that was a big thing for me too, and I know it was for you too. Is when it got to a point where you could no longer hardly distinguish between someone making spending lots of time and effort into an art piece and then AI just whipping it up in a few seconds. It really was kind of depressing. It was like holy crap. I mean, it would take me weeks to create something like that or like any kind of scene. um, I mean, one being that wasn't my full daytime gig. I would only work on it a few hours a day, but still, it would take so long to produce one image or a couple images, and then you have this now AI stuff like Mid Journey and Stable Diffusion and stuff that would just pump this stuff out, and it was you know and I think, I mean, you and I talked about this, but that was a big kind of uh like balloon, like whatever, wind getting taking
Yeah,
the wind out of the sails.
demotivator.
Yeah, demotivated.
Yeah.
um and I don't know, it's weird. I think for me it's slowly kind of creeping back, that want to like build and design or be more creative with those types of things, and trying to learn AI and how to merge that with some of the work that I'm doing. How can you do that instead of just completely? I don't know. It's weird. I really, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest.
Yeah. No,
Especially
I
when it
hear
comes
you.
down to art stuff. And then what you brought up too about all the like the upcoming students who are learning like concept art and 3D art and really getting into that space for whether that's for video games or film or whatever, and then all of a sudden this drops. It's like, you know I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that just were like, I given up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that field, that creative field, is already hard enough as it
Oh,
is
right.
without AI. Imagine what that world is like now that these tools have gotten where they are. Like that was another demotivator for me because like I was really looking into the industry and be like, I wonder what it's like working in a creative studio and making concept art. And almost every single video or thing that I watched, it just did not motivate me. It's like, man, they work these poor people to the bone
Right.
and then not pay them. Sometimes just like it's a really roller coaster field.
Hmm.
And that kind of turned me away a little bit into like being more curious about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Well, So like, I know that you're making music. You sent me that you're actually doing a concert
Yeah,
with a band on May 4th, right?
yeah, May
Um,
4th.
I am psyched to see you on stage. I'll be there for sure. Like, I want
Awesome.
to see you rock out. Like I've that was one of the things that I always wanted to do, but never really pursued. I know that you were in a band a while back, and like you toured, and that's how you met Aaron, and
Yeah.
like you did the whole rock star thing. And dude, that I'm so jealous that you got to kind of live that life for a while. Tell me what that's like. I want to vicariously live through rock star
Yeah. No, it
Logan.
was it was it was a lot of fun. I mean, we definitely had a lot of fun. I mean, we started the band back in our junior year in high school, maybe junior or senior year, and the first demo we put out really sucked. It was horrible, and it was funny. We had a meeting. We were like we got to stop sucking or just stop, and so from that point on we wrote like a couple really good songs and put it on demo and started playing shows, a lot of shows in Southern California. We got picked up by Face Down Records, and then we did our first record with them. And then so by the way, my first band's name was Sinai Beach, um, and so we put our first record out with Face Down. I totally forgot to mention that. And then we toured a crap ton. And tour was funny. Like for me, it would be a whole lot of fun for the first like 2.5, 3 weeks maybe. But we were touring so much, especially on our first record, we'd be out for like a month, come back for like a week or two, and then go back out for another month. And so we were out all the time, and it was weird. Like we would get out there, have fun, and then it would become real hard. I mean, you're just living with the same group of dudes and people for months on end, and then you come home, take a break, but then immediately you're ready to get back out on the road. It's weird. It was like we were stoked to do it. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got to tour all across the U.S. The only state we never hit was Maine, up there, and that was one place I really wanted to go. But we hit, all the states aside from Maine, and then we did,
That blows
um,
my mind that you
dude.
hit that many states. That's crazy.
It's
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
no,
but it's
yeah. Well, it's funny because I hardly remember a lot of
just
them.
like a blur.
Oh, it was a total blur. Our other guitar player, Mike, like he has the best memory I've ever known. That dude can recall stuff, and I'm like, how the hell do you remember that? But for me, it's like, oh yeah, I can vaguely remember, this venue in Georgia that we went to or whatever. Um, but we toured the U.S. multiple times, and then we did a little bit in Europe, just a few little stints there, and then we went to Puerto Rico, which was a blast. That one was fun. Um, and we did that for, I mean, legitly nonstop on the road from, I would say, 2004 to 2007, maybe. I think because we
Wow.
we officially broke up as a band or kind of parted ways around 2007, end of 2007, 2008. I'm just kind of guesstimating, but we did our first record on Face Down, and then our second one we released it on Victory Records, which at that time had a lot of great bands like Hatebreed and I don't remember all the ones off the top of my tongue, but a lot of cool hardcore bands. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people. Toured with a lot of great bands like Throwdown, Bleeding Through, like Sworn Enemy. Did a couple shows with Hatebreed.
That's
And
nuts, dude.
yeah, a
That's
lot of
like
big.
my childhood dream. That's like what I like in 2004. I think I was I was definitely in high school, possibly junior or sophomore year. And back then, dude, I was just twanging on my electric guitar and then playing like Morrowind, and
Yes,
like
yeah,
that's basically all I was doing.
that's awesome, man.
And listen to that shit.
Yeah, dude,
Uh,
same thing, man. And I mean, it's really funny because I don't think we really ever thought we would, do anything like what we did. And, we weren't like the biggest band, I mean, I think one of the final tours we did, it was like our first real headlining tour, since we had first started. So it was really cool to see just kind of what kind of draw we would have after touring so long on our own. And it was decent. It was, we would have nights where it would be like anywhere between, depending on where we were, we'd have anywhere between like 150 kids to like maybe 500, So it was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, Southern California, we were really, I think the most well known around here. But touring, it was kind of a hit or miss thing. But we had a lot of fun. It was really cool just meeting a bunch of people and being able to experience that. I think for me too, and a lot of the guys in the band, there's a lot of things about touring and being in the band that really kind of helped us kind of shape who we are today too. You kind of get put in these weird experiences, let alone being put up on stage every night. You kind of get used to just being in front of a ton of people.
Yeah.
That has its own benefits too. But yeah, it was interesting, man.
You'd probably be a fantastic like public speaker because you're already kind of used to seeing lots of people. It's probably like no big deal for you, huh?
Well, dude, that's funny because I totally have social anxiety, and getting up on stage was always something I was like, I'm never doing. Right.
Oh wow, you never like developed muscle memory for it or anything. It's just it was
Dude,
always like, and I've heard of that too. I've heard of a lot of people like stage people. They have like stage fright, and it's just always prevalent.
well, it was weird because you know, I think there was a couple things for me. One, knowing that I wasn't going to be on stage by myself, right? I
Hmm.
could have all the other band members there, and that made things a lot easier. But then you also, I think, like depending on where you're at in the states, and especially if you don't know anyone, it's kind of like, whatever, it'll be fun. And I think once you get up there and play, it all kind of goes away. But like talking, and verbally speaking to people, that's always kind of been a weird fear, right, for me. But I will say, by doing that, by being in the band and having to do that, I think that's helped us so much. It just kind of helped ease that a little bit more. You know what I mean? But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a trip, man.
No, yeah, I have a like I'm a pretty confident person,
Yeah,
like up until the moment. Like if I have to speak for something, because I've spoken for a couple of things, just like little design things here and there, like no big deal crap.
yeah,
And I'd be like, "Yeah, man, I'm ready to go. I got my flashcards. I got my keynote. Like everything's good to go. I was practicing the night before. Like I got it down. But the second I'm up there, my brain gets real stupid. I go, duh, my name is Casey, and I do design, and then that's when I have to get my flashcards, and like the flashcards help, but then you got to like remind yourself not to just look at the flashcards the whole time. And
right.
like I made that mistake. I just spoke at a thing like not even that long ago for our little local thing, the connecting things thing,
Yeah,
and they let me go up there and like pitch. And I was like, if you look at the video that they posted on Instagram, I'm just like looking at my cue cards, and I'm like not even looking at the crowd. Like,
oh,
yeah,
dude.
that's a whole thing. That's a whole discipline in and of itself. It's just like talking in front of people.
Yeah, it's got to be a muscle memory thing, right? Like the more you do it, the easier it becomes. I think
Yeah.
like anything else, And I don't think I've ever spoken on stage before, or like given a talk or anything like that. But that's something I would love to try and face that, and just get it done. But I don't know what it is, man. It's weird because it's kind of the same thing. Like I could actually, if I knew I had to speak at an event, I could actually go into the room, walk the room with everyone there, and be totally cool. And actually, I'd probably feel pretty good. But for whatever reason, when that time comes, it's like the same thing. Like it'd be, I don't know, I'd like freak out. I feel like
I feel like if you actually did it, I feel like you'd kill it. I feel like you just like get back into just being on stage and performing, and like I feel like you would actually like do it flawlessly and surprise yourself. I, on the other hand, I feel like I bully myself like with my neurodiversity crap, the ADHD crap. It's like, and the weird confidence. It's like, yeah, I could do it. then I push myself up on the stage and I'm just like dumbfounded. I'm like, why the heck did I do this? And it's just like I feel like I bully myself into situations sometimes, and I just like,
Dude.
you know,
Well, I think it's like you just being like, hey, like I need to do this kind of stuff, and you're putting yourself. I think that's the only way to do it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah, you're
I
probably
yeah,
right.
yeah, you do great, man. Like I've seen you talk at the one of the Nasdaq things that we did back in
Oh,
the
thank
day.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, dude, that was
man,
great, man. It was good, and
that was
yeah,
so long ago. Dude, I used it because I think Aaron took some shots of me like behind the podium, and I looked all super pro. Like I had a nice shirt on, my hair was like done.
yeah,
I'm like pointing up at the keynote thing, and I think that was like my LinkedIn photo for like 8 something years.
that's awesome.
I
Yeah,
was
dude,
like, this is the most professional I'm ever gonna look. Like I better use that photo wisely.
that was great, man. Yeah, I loved it.
Uh,
Dang.
so like, are you still making music and stuff, or you
Yeah.
got any projects that you're working on?
So yeah, so like we were talking about, I'm playing in a new band. It's this band called Oblige. They've been around for quite some time actually. We My first band, Sinai Beach, we became friends with those guys pretty early on. And they wrote a lot of stuff. They wrote one. They had a demo and a record, and then they kind of stopped for a little bit, and then they became the Devastated. So the band, the Devastated, is pretty much the same band as Oblige, but just under a different name and newer songs. So they broke up for quite a while as well, and then just recently, over just this year, 2025, really, they were trying to get back together, and they asked me if I wanted to play, and I was like, yeah, why not? That'd be fun. And it kind of works out. All of us are kind of grown up, obviously grown up, and we got either families of our own or careers that we're already doing. So the whole idea is like, let's just have some fun. Let's see what happens. And it was actually kind of funny. We weren't actually planning on really playing any shows anytime soon. We just wanted to write some new stuff. I needed to learn their songs, all that kind of good stuff. And then we got hit up like last month, like, hey, you want to play a show at Chain Reaction on the 4th? And we were all like, holy crap, yeah, let's do it. But I'm so nervous. I still have like 6 songs I gotta learn from them.
Oh, damn, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, and they're shredders, man. Like they play faster than what I'm used to, and so my like I gotta just get my guitar skills back.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, you met my buddy Martin, so he
Yeah,
was like my childhood buddy, and we grew up playing guitars together, and we had our silly little. I wouldn't even call it a band. We were just like we would hang out, and we had broken instruments, and our music sessions always ended in us playing some video game. Like
that's
that's how it
awesome.
always ended. We never went anywhere with it, but it's funny how like I reconnected with him in Orange County, and now we're jamming together like pretty
Dude.
much every week. And our goal was to make a local bar band, but
Yes.
do like Blue Oyster Cult
Yeah.
or some other like yacht rock or whatever type of band, and then try to do something with that. But I never like I kind of wanted to get to your level, like where you were like touring and like doing all that stuff, but I feel like I never there was never that moment, you know what I mean, where it's like where the magic kind of gets together and like you're in a band that's actually doing good shit, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I was always just like jamming by myself, making my own stuff, and
Dude.
mostly just messing around.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to try and find other people to play with that kind of have a similar. I mean, unless you're kind of going and seeking out those people, it is hard to kind of naturally. And for whatever reason, you know my best friend growing up that I knew from second grade, like he got into drums, started playing drums, and became a spectacular, solid drummer. And so that's kind of how we got our drummer. We met our singer in high school, and it was just so random how these pieces fit. And then we started bumping into other bands and becoming friends with them. And then one band would either break up or change members. Then we would grab like Mike, our other guitar player. He came from a band called Falling Cycle, so we snagged him when he left, and yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. But it's wild how I guess just like anything, when you start rolling into that space, it kind of starts to people start to kind of fall into place, I guess. But it is hard to try and like initiate and find certain people sometimes if you don't know any right off the bat who want to
No.
play.
And I'm sure it's even harder now, like you circling back to AI. I feel like all these conversations lately
Oh
just circle back to AI because it's just like everywhere. You can't avoid it. But like you're showing me some of the generative stuff that you put together, and I could see how that could be helpful, like putting together like a concept and
yeah,
like maybe getting a riff together and an idea. But I can see like an individual creative not necessarily needing so many people like to create ensembles
you know what
anymore.
it is.
Even just like vocals, like the thing you showed
Yeah.
me, it was like a fake vocal, but it
Yes.
sounded real.
Yeah. I honestly, I think it all kind of goes back to that whole thing that we were talking about where you lose that challenge of creating stuff. It's almost like when you put in a cheat code in a video game. It's cool at first, but then it gets
Yeah.
super boring and you're like, this is dumb. I don't want to play anymore, right? And that's the kind of same feeling I get too when, like a new AI thing comes out, especially when it's a creative tool like Suno, the music generator, or something with art. It's cool for a while, like you can try different things, but then it's just happening so fast. You're able to put out this stuff so fast, and it looks or sounds amazing. And that whole challenge aspect of being able, like having to work at creating it, and I think that's what being an artist is all about too. It's like you got to put in work, to really create something that you feel is amazing. And when it happens so quickly, and it kind of loses that whole like shiny, like, oh look what I did kind of thing. You're like, well,
Yeah, it gives more value. Like if it's hard and it takes
yeah,
time and effort, then there's more value to it. I love that analogy that you gave of putting in a cheat code in a video game because you're right. It is fun at first. It is fun flying tanks around GTA and
yes,
like blowing shit up and doing all this wild stuff. But then
yeah,
after doing it for only like 5-10 minutes, you're right. It's like there's no challenge left.
yeah,
It's boring and like I feel the same way pretty much when it comes to all my hobbies. The only hobbies that I really enjoy doing are the ones that are impossible to master.
mm,
Like I'm just now getting into golfing and it's so hard, but my stupid brain gets obsessed by difficulty
yeah,
and I get like obsessive and I'm like I'm going to figure this out like if it kills me or not. Same thing with like surfing. Like even
yeah,
though I've been doing it since I was 14, it's still so hard and it's one of those impossible things to master and I feel like with AI and its involvement in everything creative, with that challenge being gone and you being able to not necessarily press a button, but for the most part, get an idea down really quickly and kind of
right.
fast forward to an ending render. With that challenge being gone, it's so hard to find that muse again. That
Mhm.
muse that I miss the motivation of just like sitting down and drafting just a really creative thing for hours and hours and hours. I feel like it'd be really hard to get that back.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I one of the things I always try and think about too is, how can we get that back, but then integrate, if we could integrate some way of using AI as like a helping hand rather than like the final product. I mean, but it's just, yeah, it's odd, and a lot of the 3D artists that I follow online too, that I know of, like they, try and stay away as much as possible from that, or they don't really, utilize AI at all because for the same reason. It just, you kind of, I mean, now I will say there are like, we talked about this the other night, but like prompt engineering, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There are some like pretty crazy things that people can do that I've seen that still like it's becoming easier to emulate and like copy, even AI art, but it is pretty amazing some of the stuff that these people can, these artists, these prompt engineers and AI artists can do. Some of the stuff I've seen is pretty wild, but it's at the end of the day, it's a whole different type of creativity in an aspect, or in a sense, and it's just, yeah, man, that is something that I don't know, maybe I haven't just wrapped my head enough around it to really fully grasp it as a tool. But that whole drive to want to like be creative again is just so easily killed. It's like if
Yeah, it is.
you know, even if I go like, because there will be times like you mentioned, where you'll have an idea, and rather than kind of spend forever seeing if this idea work, maybe you can go to AI. Like sometimes I go on Mid Journey, like, oh, I wonder if this would look cool, right? And I'll do some stuff, and I'll kind of will it down, and I get something that's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
being a
I've been in
creative
that same
part,
position.
yeah. It's like,
I'm
man,
in that exact same position where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna mess around with this and like maybe this will get me to draw again. And so I put in a prompt for like a gassy sci-fi planet with a rustic
yeah.
looking like transport ship, and then it like spits it out, and I'm like, that's cool. I'm gonna go take a nap.
Yes, yeah,
It's just
totally.
like it's just gone. It sucks. It's so
I know,
sad.
I hate it, man. Yeah,
But
I was trying to take like recently some of my older like Cinema 4D renders, and I would try to, you can, like, I would do some weird image stuff, or I would upload it either to Stable Diffusion or Mid Journey, and see if it could come up with like a variant of that, and almost make it better. And it's pretty crazy how it can do that. But still, yeah, it's still the same thing. It's just like what am I doing?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was funny too because like when I was curious about doing like that kind of art, and then when I got away from it, I made a hard pivot to web development because like
Hmm.
I did product design for such a long time, and like with Nasdaq, like we're doing mostly
Yeah,
product design, just purely design work. And then my brain was just like, nope, let's go full throttle into web development. So I just like
it's amazing,
got,
man.
yeah, I just like, well, I mean, I had been coding pretty much since college, but like mostly with my focus on design,
Yeah.
and like development was always like a secondary or tertiary skill that brought in money on the side. And then I was just like, no, I'm gonna go full throttle into development and see where that takes me. And then that's when I like just got a full on like development job. I didn't even do design necessarily. I was just like building
That's awesome.
designs.
That's so
Um,
cool.
it's just so funny how your brain can just weave you around these different skills, and all I feel like motivated by boredom.
Oh, for
You
sure.
know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I totally see that, because I think in the past, like you said, you had almost this, like, you had your primary challenge, which was like your day job, your work, kind of problem solving for that. But then you also had this kind of secondary motivational challenge thing of creating art, or, surfing or what have you. And then you have this art thing that it just kind of loses its shine. And you're like, okay, well, that was fun. Now let's like just focus on what we know already, right? And like, let's make that better and sharpen that skill. And I think there's something rad to that, because you definitely, like we were talking about earlier, being a generalist and being good at a lot of things is awesome, but then you kind of suffer a little bit in all of it.
Yeah,
And so I think it's good every once in a while, just like you did, and like put laser focus on maybe one of these things for a little bit to really hone in that skill. But I mean, ultimately, I think you and I both are just those creative types of people that want to create more stuff.
yeah, and you're right. Generalism, it there's clear advantages to it, but it's also like you could veer too far, and then all of a sudden now you're the project manager and you're the designer, and you have to put together a rapid prototype in React, and you have to communicate those requirements to development and do QA. And it's like if you get your fingers too much into the process, I mean, I got plenty of buddies that are just constantly stressed out. And
Oh,
once they get into that weave and upper management sees, like, oh, they can pretty much do all this stuff. And all of a sudden now they've got more diversified work on their plate, but their pay doesn't increase. It's just
oh,
now they're spending more time doing more tasks that, in my opinion, other people probably should just be doing.
oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I mean, I I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I really don't. I have a hard time with the whole like multitasking thing. I
Yeah.
definitely think you can balance a few things at the same time if they are closely related in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I mean, it's and maybe it's just the way my brain works too. But I literally can focus on one thing at a time. That's why I love having a to do list. Right, you just kind of go down the line of priorities, and when it comes to that, like you can really put laser focus on one thing at a time. And I think when you have, you know, when your brain is scattered too much, it's hard to really make these things work well when you have to spread out your talents and your knowledge like super thin across different things at the same time. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, man.
Like I love my project managers, but now with the advent of AI and having these tools that can also spit out designs, with some of my clients, like I love them to death. My project managers, they're great. They do great work. But now that they have all these AI tools in front of them, they send me the weirdest stuff. Like, hey, what do you think about this, man? I'm like, that's pretty cool, but like maybe we should focus on the problem at hand, like
Yeah.
the problem being defined that we're trying to design. I mean, it's cool that this it's got drop downs and buttons and I can select stuff and it looks
Yeah.
like it spit out some code, but I don't know if this necessarily solves the user defined problem, the user story.
Right. Yeah. Oh man.
And the fact, and you mentioned this too the last time we were talking. I think we were 3 beers deep at this point. We are talking about how Figma it's just become this bloated
Oh
machine, and now you can see everyone who's on your canvas like poking around stuff, and
yeah.
you're trying to focus on what to get the design done, and all of a sudden you got these little arrows like looking around, and it's like for me it's almost like stage fright, like a little
Oh
bit. It's just
bro.
like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. This like who's
it's too
watching?
much, and I get that now when I'm working with some companies. It's like they go into my stuff while I'm in the middle of designing. I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
It's like get out of here, dude.
uh,
Did you ever? So I don't know if they still have it because it's been a minute since I used a Fig Jam. But they did you ever mess with like the record? They had like a music like player thing up in the right, like oh my light just kicked on. In the upper left corner,
yeah,
they had this like record thing that you could click on and play music on your Fig Jam board, and it was hilarious because we would be myself and two or three of our other designers would be just in the same Fig Jam communicating or like on a Google call or whatever. And you could start just playing random music, like elevator type style, and be like, what? It was so weird.
yeah. It's kind of become a Swiss Army knife. Like,
Yeah, it's like, it, yeah, going back to what we originally talked about, it just feels so bloated with stuff. It's almost too complicated. I love where what they're trying to do with the um, um, like the conditional type statements and the things that you can
yeah,
do. It's really cool, but I almost I question like is that kind of I mean, do we really need all that stuff? I mean, I suppose depending on what you're doing, but for us, in our day to day stuff that I'm doing using it before, we just want to really quickly mock stuff up, have a simple component library that we can pull from, um, and just build stuff, throw stuff together, and then make like small to medium prototypes. Um, we really try not to create massive prototypes, but we end up doing that anyway. But it um, just so wild if you're putting so many screens together trying to prototype stuff and
death by
I don't know, man.
spaghetti.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, it's yeah, I know there's been so many types of tools out in the from the past that have tried to kind of make prototyping a simple process, and I really don't know how you solve it, but you know I think, in my opinion, for web design and creation, I feel like Framer has done a really good job at simplifying a lot of that stuff. There's
Hmm.
still some things where I'm a little confused on. It's not a perfect tool, but by far, I think it's a uh, in terms of the user experience and the learning curve, and being a tool that is very visually similar to Figma. in my opinion. Like it's way easier to use, and I feel like the way that they handle components and animations and stuff like that, I don't know, it just feels a lot more intuitive and simpler. I feel like Figma has just gotten just too bloated.
Yeah, how I've kind of solved that in the past too, because I love Framer too. I love because I develop with Framer.
Yeah.
Not I don't necessarily use the UI, but I use the npm library, the
Oh yeah,
frame the
yeah,
motion library
yeah,
when I'm coding in Next.js. What I've kind of done in the past is instead of spending a lot of time trying to prototype it in Figma and making the spaghetti and
yeah,
messing around with any of like the motion tweening crap, what I've started doing is I just record looms of me going like, okay, here's the workflow, and then I'll loom record it and record
yes,
my screen and be like, all right, on this screen it's supposed to accomplish this task to go to this one, and then like the loom will sometimes end up being like 30 minutes long, but then
yeah,
most of the time I get little to no questions from the developers because they'll watch the loom and then they'll see how it's supposed to
yeah,
function and what the end goal is supposed to be and the user story it's solving for. And then if I want a specific motion for a micro interaction, I'll just literally slide in like a framer library and be like, I want this animation that,
so,
and then just put it on this frame. And then instead of me spending time doing it and
yeah,
doing weird shit in Figma and possibly breaking
dude.
stuff, I just say, here's the library I like, take this, put it there, and then I'll record that on my Loom and I'll just send that to them as a requirement.
Oh, that's cool.
That's been pretty successful for me the last couple of years.
I love Loom. Use
Yeah.
Loom for everything. Like I like people probably get pissed because they're like, I don't want to watch another one of Logan's videos, but it's so much helpful, like so much more
Yeah.
helpful than like trying to just send a Figma prototype or hopping on. I mean, you could do it like a Zoom meeting, but I love just being able to quickly record something, send it, done. No need for a meeting. Just clarify what you need. I love Loom. Yeah, it's a great
By
tool.
the way, Loom is not a sponsor of Talk Product. In fact, I have no sponsors because I don't look at the analytics. I have no idea how well or terrible this thing does. I just record with my buddies and then just have fun with it. I would, however, would love Loom as a sponsor. And if
Yeah,
Loom's
come on,
listening, we love your tool. And if you like Talk Product, I will put your ads on here and then I'll make a bunch of money. It sounds cool.
man. Absolutely. Yeah, dude. Yeah, so I like as far as your day to day, Casey. I mean, so you were saying that you do use Figma, but you pretty much like are mostly prototype are building like via code and stuff, right? Like doing more of the
Yeah, so I became an accidental entrepreneur when I got laid off last year because
right. Yeah,
I did not want to go through the interview process with other companies. I just did not have the energy, did not have the motivation, felt a little burnt out. I mean, we built a lot of cool stuff the last place I was at, and I felt satisfied with the way that that kind of story arc of my career ended. I felt like we built a lot of cool shit, and it was my time to go anyway. Um, but I was like, okay, I don't have the energy to interview. I don't have the motivation to update my portfolio. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to do an LLC and see where it takes me. So I, sent an email blast to my internal network and said, hey, I'm available. If there's any projects, I'm going to be doing my own thing for a while. Just let me know. And then it just kicked off some work for me pretty much right off the bat. But the caveat of me being a generalist entrepreneur is that I have one client that I just strictly do web development for. So I'm
yeah,
only building for them, like building stuff on Next.js, and I'm hosting it on AWS. So I'm kind of like managing that workflow. And
that's
then I have another client where I'm just solely doing design. So I have to use
both
like
your brains.
right side brain Casey on one day and then left side brain Casey on the other day. And I've had to learn to utilize both sides of my brain and my disciplines for separate clients.
No, I love
So
that.
it's been interesting.
No, I think that's so cool because that continues to keep your mind sharp between your design and development and living in that same world. That's one of the things too that I really enjoyed about working for Nasdaq because we did more. design in browser, like prototyping, really coding things out versus, spending time in design tools. Like we did, I remember spending some time in design tools, but it was mostly just, using Bootstrap and,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and really just kind of prototyping stuff to show to the developers. And what
Yeah.
I miss,
Pre React stuff.
yeah, dude, yeah. And what were you were using? What was that processor? It was less. Was it less?
Bootstrap less, or no, this was pre less. We were just doing JSX, or no, not JSX. We were doing everything in Node and a code compiler.
Node.
Babel. It was Node, Babel, and then we had our own thing,
That's
like
right.
our own library that we built.
Yep.
Um, yeah, dude, it was nuts. But yeah, I think pretty sure that was pre TypeScript. I don't think that was like type. I think that
Yeah.
was just it was JavaScript, but in Node.
Oh, it's crazy, man.
Old school shit, man.
Gosh, and what I loved about that though is kind of going back to what you said. If you kind of got that ability to where when you're designing stuff, you kind of keep that development brain in mind, knowing what you can and can't do. Having just that front end knowledge as you're designing stuff helps so much. Even if it's just a little bit, and vice versa. I really that back then when I was more in code and design, I kind of understand what you're meaning. Just having to use both sides of your brain, but it just complements so well, especially when you're working around in the same world kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I've been in business for myself for about a year now, and it's been surprisingly pretty good.
Yeah,
Like,
awesome.
I'm surprised like now that I'm my own boss, it's a little bit of a catch 22. It's great being able to work when I want to, sleep in when I don't have meeting days, take Mondays and Fridays off if I want to,
Yeah,
but you also are the person that holds yourself accountable to get stuff done.
for sure. Yeah.
So it's like you don't want to get too comfortable with it,
Hmm.
because you're this like if I fuck up, it's on me. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
I can't be like, oh, this wasn't done by this person, and then that wasn't done by that. No, it's like all on me now. So it's
Yeah.
it's nice, but it's also like it's
So
a little stressful. So
for
I don't
sure, man.
know.
Do
It's
you?
definitely not boring. That's for sure.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
It's like I gotta work today. Do you have any like types of tools or like workflows that you use to help kind of manage your time to understand like maybe how much you're working that day, or I think you and I talked about this a while ago, but just the everyday things like the types of stuff that you need to either kind of motivate yourself, get you going in the zone, or keeping track of what you're doing, whether it's like prioritizing your I can't talk tonight prioritizing your stuff,
Sure.
um, and all that stuff. Like, do you have any like types of workflows or things that you use when you're getting into that stuff?
Trello. I love
Ah,
Trello.
yeah,
Trello would also be an amazing sponsor of the podcast.
there we go.
Um,
Yep,
but
dude.
Trello, because it's just so easy for me to just make a Kanban board and make
Yeah,
cards, and then put when it's in progress or when it's on staging and when it's queued for production. And so the the tech stack I'm using is what I used at my last gig. So Next.js for the front end, well, they didn't use AWS for hosting, but I am
nice.
using AWS for hosting. And then just the same, like I push to prod on Friday nights, and I have a staging server for everything. I send it to my clients to review on staging before I push to prod. All that stuff is very similar. So I learned a lot from the mentors that I had in my last gig in terms of the development stack. And then with the design workflow, like I mentioned, I lean heavily on sending them video recordings
Yeah,
because it's just easier for me. And just all Figma all day long for design stuff.
dude. I have you ever tried using Notion for
I love Notion.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Notion's great.
I just started kind of using that as like well in the last year and a half maybe, but using it as like a project tracker, like using their Kanban boards and all that stuff. I really
All the
do.
tools are amazing. Everything right now is just amazing.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
that,
Do you use their calendar? I like the calendar a lot.
yes,
Really,
yeah, the calendar's cool. Like that's the thing. Like all tools right now, they're all amazing. They all blow my mind. Everything is designed so well.
it
It's
is
almost like
very
there's nothing to design for anymore in a weird way because there's so many like product design libraries and frameworks and style libraries. That everything is just designed really well. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah.
It's not like in our day when we were doing stuff, there was none of that.
Oh dude.
Like, you know,
Yeah, and you really had to like push to be, you know, you could try different stuff and do wild things, but it wasn't so easy and accessible to do today too. It's like, I mean, you can, like you said, there's libraries built already. You just bring in and do certain things. Yeah, it's, yeah, it's wild.
yeah,
It's
man.
really crazy. It's funny to me too. You know, whenever I'm doing like a web design project, the thing that's that really, I don't know, is it's fun but kind of annoying is when I'm building buttons. You know,
Hmm.
and for the most part, I try to have like a pre-built kind of template that I use when I'm building stuff. But anytime I have to go and create a new button, I'm like, here we go. What is it going to be? Rounded corners or square or how?
Yeah,
Because it's, you can get pretty wild, but then at the same time, you're like, nothing's really new under the sun. It's like,
yeah. The running joke is whenever there's like a new designer that gets on board, the first thing they want to do is make a pattern library and like let's redesign the button. It's like,
you're like,
bro,
no.
really?
It's like,
Logan, dude, I love talking with you. I could talk with you all night long. Like, we had a
absolutely,
great conversation at the bar. We're having a great conversation here. You've been very generous with your time. I appreciate you wanting to talk with me again so soon
dude.
for the podcast. And dude, I'm just stoked. Every time I end like talking with you, I always feel good. It's always felt good.
Oh, right
It
on,
always
man.
feels positive talking to Logan. So I'm
I
psyched.
appreciate that, dude. Yeah, I really enjoyed being able to catch up with you the other day and then today. I really appreciate you having me on, man. It was a lot of fun. We should definitely do it again sometime.
Yeah, dude, I'm down, dude. Well, I'll
Absolutely.
catch you later. Thanks again, dude.
All right, thanks, Casey. Talk to you soon, man.
Later.